Hello, I'm Helen Van Wyk, and welcome to my studio. It's going to be an exciting time today because I'm going to paint a portrait. I hope you don't expect that I can show you how to do a portrait such as this one in a short time. This is all smoothed out, and this takes a little longer. But the painting process is the same. I'm just going to speed it up a little bit, and I love to do a portrait sketch such as this. I think I'll wash the canvas down with a little bit of turpentine first, just to ease the pain. And a cloth in my hand and some black paint. My first problem always is where I want him on the canvas and how big. So a few marks to suggest his hair, where his chin is going to be. Nice strong chin. And I hold my brush in midair like this because it looks so arty, but I'll tell you why I do it later on. Yes, it's a way of drawing. I put my brush in midair and line it up to his body so I can get his body in proportion to his face. Proportion, it's the whole secret of being able to draw well. And now a line to get the perspective of his features, meaning this side of his face and this side of his face are the same, but not at my view. And so I have to foreshorten all the features on this side because of the way he's turned. And a few more proportions. How much is hair? How much is forehead? I got this far one time and someone in an audience who was watching a painting demonstration said, I got this far one time and someone in an audience who was watching a painting demonstration said, it doesn't look like him yet. Which proves that it is typical for beginner painters to ask too much too soon. It's not the results that is so much fun about painting, it's the doing. When you finish a picture, the only thing you can do is start another one. But while you're working on it, it's really such a joy. Although, people say, what's the difference between being a painter and being a portrait painter? I say the portrait painter has to be a little bit crazy. Because we have a pressure of what the model is thinking about. Apples don't think. So you're at peace when you're painting a still life. And so I do a lot of pots and vases. But boy, when a real dish comes along, I can't resist them. And so this is pretty much the first step. And now, I only see him because the light is shining on him, and I always like to use strong lighting conditions. I have a strong light coming from my north light coming in on him, so the right side of his face is illuminated and the shadow side is over here. And with a gray, black and white, yes, just plain old black and white. And with a gray, black and white, yes, just plain old black and white. I have the shape to worry about. Why should I worry about the color too? I'm going to just plop in with a big broad brush wherever I don't see the flesh color. Sargent said, a portrait is a picture of a person and there's something wrong with the mouth. Everyone worries about painting the eyes. Really, it's the mouth that's more difficult because it's more movable. And the face all around the mouth is where the expression is. I'm not looking for an expression now. I'm just looking for something that looks human. Do you ever think about it that we don't even know whether Rembrandt got a likeness? He did. We don't know. Rembrandt got a likeness? He did. We don't know. And turpentine on a little rag is always the painter's eraser. Always give yourself a lot of leeway. Leeway in that you have a vague beginning. But I'm squinting to see only what the light is doing to him, not what I know him to be. I step back a lot when I paint a portrait. Walk back and forth, back and forth. I'll walk a mile for my picture. I've just done some proportioning. Proportion is the whole secret of being able to get the shape right, meaning make the size of one thing in relation to another. And one way to be able to do this is to put your hand at arm's length and put the top of the brush, let's say at the top of his head, and put your thumb at his eye line. And you have this. That means nothing. I've seen people take this and put it on the canvas and say, oh no, that couldn't be. This only means that at the length of my arm, from the top of his head to his eye is this size. Now I can compare that to something else. I'm going to compare it to, from his eye to his chin. Eyebrow to the top of his head, eyebrow, it almost is the same. So then I can put my brush here, put my thumb here, and look and see this and say, aha, isn't that nice? Painting is doing it and then correcting it. And so I sketch it all in first and then do all the proportioning. I measured the width of his head in relation to the height of his head and found that the width from here to here went from the top of his head to his mustache. So now I've got the pattern of light and dark in. I'm going to take a bigger brush and start on the flesh color. Everyone asks me, Helen, what is flesh color? Everyone asks me, Helen, what is flesh color? Well, everyone's flesh color is different. There is a formula that I can give you, though. Maybe not the one you want. Flesh color is seen where the light strikes. White is your physical substitute for light. And all flesh color, whether it's very pale or extremely tanned, any race, you're going to have white shining on a warm color. And under these lights, he gets really warm. And it's nice. We feel better in warm light. So in warm light, any skin gets warmish because we paint the effect of light. So try the color out. Well, I took some cadmium red light and some Grumbacher red and some yellow ochre and put it down and didn't like it. It looked a little bit too healthy, so I've just made him a little bit lighter. And I'm going to start right up here with an adequate coverage. Not being afraid. Don't be afraid. You have nothing to lose. Well, you have a 50-50 chance, a mess or a masterpiece. And one way to, well, someone very wise said, you have nothing to fear but fear itself. It doesn't really help you. So if you're going to make a mistake, make a bold one. Oh, that color, that paint looks so nice and juicy. Make sure that you load your brush enough to be able to spread it. Now, I'm going to be putting a lot of different nuances of color into this flesh puddle. As I look at him, right now I've dulled the warm color with burnt umber to get that slight change. just as his forehead rolls toward his eyes. Yes, so many people worry about the eyes, nose, and mouth. I don't. I worry about the forehead, cheeks, and chin. If I do that and this, maybe I'll get the eyes, nose, and mouth as a fringe benefit. They're all related. Wow, isn't that an exciting color? I like that. Wow, isn't that an exciting color? I like that. In the beginning, you really should breathe a lot of color into your picture. Then it can withstand some of the blending that we're so tempted to do. All noses, though, are always in two parts. The bone part and the cartilage part. 2 strokes. Don't go all the way down. Make it in 2 strokes, here and here. Because your strokes are inspired by his anatomy. Yes, time is always a factor when you paint. More so in painting a portrait. Because you're kind of aware of your model's discomfort sometimes. You don't have forever to paint. It takes a lifetime to be able to paint decently. Anyone can paint. Painting well is another problem. Do you know that Van Dyck died at the age of 42, and he painted over 300 portraits of the English court alone. That's not his entire production. So he must have been efficient. I see people come up and start fiddling around with all these little things. The model, in the meantime, doesn't know why he's sitting there. Another thing, people worry about how to paint an eye. They never worry about an ear. An ear is a more difficult anatomy, really. It's so complicated. And you can get caught up on it. You can start painting it and getting involved in every little shape. And then your portrait looks like a portrait of an ear with a man hanging nearby. I used to love it when the men were wearing long, long hair covering up the ears. So this is the stage of laying in the flesh color. This stage usually takes a whole morning, meaning an hour and a half, to appreciate every little thing. But a painting demonstration, which is what I can only do for you in the time that you have a chance to watch me. We have to editorialize on some of these procedures. So let me step back a minute and see how this looks. Getting these shapes of the features by bumping the flesh color against these shadows is the most important stage of the picture's development, because everything that I'll be doing on it will be embedded on this, and this is the solidity of the portrait. This is what makes him look human. First human, and then these are his basic features, and then I can then do something more. Do what you're interested in seeing. For instance, painting his eyes. You're interested in seeing. For instance, painting his eyes. So into the shadow I'm going to dig a darker dark to indicate his eye. And always do them together. Don't do one and then the other. You're going to make them both have the same. If you make one and then the other, they'll be a matching pair. I had a student one time who painted one eye, and I said, Sid, you're only painting one eye. He says, the other one's just like it. I'm going to do that one at home. And we'll see him still working on it. Because it's not that I get one eye right. I get one eye to, get them relatively the same. And that darker tone that indicated his eyes is also the darker tone I'll use to indicate his nostrils. These are all the underplanes. And that's the darker tone that I'm going to get the little smile on his face. So into the dark pattern, I add more dark. And I see a little bit of light hitting his lower lip now that he's smiled a little bit. And now, as I added darker darks into the shadow side to add more features or dimension, conversely, I'll add more light to the light side. These are the highlights that hit on all the concave and convex planes. See, that's a bump, and here's a bump, and here's a dent. A concave plane. People say, how do you paint wrinkles, Helen? Well, I don't paint wrinkles. He doesn't have any. I paint the bumps between them. More light, or where it's the light is striking harder, naturally the tone is going to get lighter, and that's the wonderful highlight. Like the way paint looks. Be more involved and in love with the way the paint looks than the way skin is, because you don't have skin on your brush, you just have paint. It's that factor that makes painting a portrait a little bit more difficult, because you can't seem to disassociate yourself from the model. You can't be cold-blooded enough. Wonderful mustache. And in this lighting, I don't see a highlight in his eye, but I saw one once. My mother always used to say, Helen, why don't you put the highlight in the eye sooner? It makes such a difference. But you can't get the highlight in the eye in the beginning. You have to work so hard to find out where that little spot is. Isn't it funny, she used to say that. And when she used to sew for me, and I'd try the dress on and it would look kind of funny, she says, Helen, it will look better when it's pressed. Oh, these nice dark eyebrows, they kind of passed me by. People wonder about when a picture is finished. You don't finish it, it just ends. You have done all the things that paint can do. You've gone as light as you can go, and you've gone as dark as you can go. You've gone as light as you can go, and you've gone as dark as you can go. Yeah, you may think I'm really cracking up doing the hair that way. I'm going to show you. But you see, put it on one way and affect it the other. And the rhythm of application suggests the hair. I can't do every strand the way it is. So let me step back a minute. See how important it is to step back and see it from a distance? While I step back, you'll notice I took those highlights out. They were terrible. So if you see something you don't like, don't be afraid to go backwards. Going backwards a little bit gives you a chance to do it again. And so by just sloshing those highlights out a little bit, let me try for a better look. So with a very dark tone, I'm going to place the iris, the dark iris again. I just asked Bob to smile. That doesn't change the eye itself, but it changes this shape right here. Moves up a little bit. Also moves this highlight up. What a difference. Get that up a little bit too far, you get that mean look. But just up enough gives a little bit of a lilt. Getting the expression is first making an eye, making a socket, and then seeing what happens to the tones around the eye because of the way the mouth moves. Because he moved his mouth and all of a sudden this lifted up. It's because his eyes are in shadow that that highlight has to be darkened. That seems to fit in better. I've done painting demonstrations, portrait painting demonstrations all over the country, and I do them very quickly. People say, how come you can do that in a half hour? I say, didn't take me a half hour. I didn't start a half hour ago. I started 35 years ago. You may think you learn how to paint a portrait or how to paint a tree or how to paint any subject matter. No, you don't learn subject matter. You learn how to paint and aim the paint to the subject of your interest. My interest next time is going to be a basket. I'm going to show you how to weave a basket with paint. Or maybe I'll teach you how to make soup. Hello, I'm Helen Van Wyk, and welcome to my studio.